Hello and welcome to Euphoria. I'm going to be creating a building for my LEGO city. The initial idea is to make an ultra-modern office building which looks like it's made from lots of glass and steel. I don't want it to be just a square office block, so I want it to have an interesting shape with slopes and curves. I call this the Ensgrave building. In the first video in this series, I looked at how I was inspired to develop the idea for a very modern modular building for my LEGO city. If you haven't seen it yet, you might want to start with that video. There's a link in the card above and in the description below. In this video, I want to develop the concept for a MOC that I might put into development, if I feel that it would be worthwhile, with a good chance of success. I'll be defining the concept for the building and thinking about constraints on developing that concept. So now we'll take the initial inspiration and work on it a bit more. I need to give consideration to the context, constraints and criteria to determine requirements and develop the concept for this model. So now we'll look a bit more at context, constraints and criteria. First of all, we'll look at context. This model will be a building in my LEGO city, but it's actually out of context for the historical town centre, so I may need to set up a new context for this building. There are no complications about levels. The site will be flat and at street level, so it can be sited on level base plates. As this will be a new setting, there are no adjacent buildings to consider at the moment. I expect this building to be viewed largely from the front, but as for most modular buildings, it should be viewable from any angle and still make sense. Now I'll look at constraints. A major office development might be quite large in real life. I don't have a particular constraint on the size of this MOC, as I don't have a defined setting for it in my LEGO city. However, I don't want it to overpower the rest of the city, so I'll constrain the footprint for this MOC to 1 base plate or 1.5 base plates. That means it would be 32 or 48 studs wide by 32 studs deep. I'll constrain the depth to 1 base plate. By the time I've included a pavement or sidewalk, that constrains the depth of the building to about 20 studs, which is quite normal for a modular building. I want it to be to minifig scale and fit in with other modular buildings from the Creator Expert modular line, so it will follow the modular building standards and conventions. If you want to see what I mean by standards and conventions for modular buildings, see my videos on this topic. There's a link in the card above and in the description below. It should be a full building, that's to say not just a facade or a doll's house style building, and it will therefore have all its walls and be viewable from the front, back and sides. Now let's look at the criteria for this MOC. I do want the building to be an interesting shape, but I don't want too many complications with the shape of the building, so I'm going to keep it as a straight modular building. I would like it to be a reasonable height, but not so high that it dominates the city. So I'm thinking that a 4 or 5 story building would be in proportion and look reasonably realistic for a major office building. I want the building to look like it's made of really modern materials like steel and glass. I can achieve some of this using the type of parts found in LEGO set 76166, which are panel pieces and frames with some curved panels, and maybe some of the same build techniques. But I want to do something interesting with the design so that it doesn't just look like a short version of that set. Because there's a lot of glass in the building, the interior will be very visible. So it will need to have interior fittings, and the floors will need to be separable to get to the interiors in the style of most LEGO modular buildings. I also have to consider the cost of the building. Although I don't have a defined budget for this MOC, I have to be able to afford to build this model using fairly affordable and available LEGO parts. So I might use some of the readily available pieces from set 76166. So my MOC may use a similar colour palette to that set, although I don't want it to look too similar. I'm hoping that I can keep the cost in check by using larger panel pieces, glazing and frames in readily available colours and quantities. It would be nice to get some of the parts from the LEGO Pick-a-Brick wall, as that's a good way of getting parts in quantity at a great price. But that may be difficult in the current circumstances where visiting LEGO stores is difficult. I've now developed a backstory for the building that becomes part of the concept for the MOC. Ensgrave Enterprises wants to set up a research institute in our city. The institute will look at further use for encomium, a rare and expensive element found here in Euphoria, which is now being used in modern technological devices. The development of this backstory made me look again at the LEGO Space Research and Development People Pack, set 60230. This includes 14 minifigs and has lots of interesting accessories and activities. I hadn't been interested in this set before for my city because 7 of the minifigs are astronauts, but I think they could easily be repurposed, as only 3 of them are actually in spacesuits, and the activities represented in this set could fit in really well with a research institute. So, as part of the concept for this building, I've settled on the idea of a research institute, populated by minifigs from that people pack, which should make for an interesting MOC. So, having given consideration to the context, constraints and criteria, they've really helped me to determine requirements and establish the concept for this model. So the concept is now this: a very modern style office building made out of steel and glass on a 32 by 32 stud base plate, or a 48 by 32 stud base plate at ground level, 4 or 5 stories high with separable floors as for modular buildings, an interesting shape using curves and slopes if I can. It will be a full building, but with the main viewpoint from the front, built to minifig scale and modular standards, and using the colour palette and parts similar to the Avengers Tower battle set. I've also developed a backstory for this MOC, and it will be a research institute populated largely by minifigs from the Space Research and Development People Pack. So that was a look at how I developed the concept for this model. I intend to design this model on the computer in a LEGO CAD program so that I have a digital build that I can use to test out my ideas before getting all the parts I need to build the MOC as a physical model. Previously, I've designed my MOCs in LEGO Digital Designer, but I'm going to develop the design for this one in LEGO Studio. But don't worry, I'll be playing around with some real LEGO bricks as well. The next stage for the development of this MOC is to look at the opportunities and options so I can develop the outline design for the model. Do you think it's worth pursuing this concept? If so, let me know, and join me in the next video in this series, where I'll be doing just that. Thanks for watching. Please let me know what you think in the comments below, and subscribe to this channel if you want to see more videos about LEGO modular buildings.